Hello and welcome back to MysHistory. If you're new here, I'm Rhonda, and this is where I talk about odd or unsolved historical mysteries. And if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, then please consider subscribing. I hope you've all been well and staying safe in this crazy world that we all live in. This week is a bit of a long one. It kind of has a lot of detail in it. So hang in. Spies, the KGB, the Cold War. Who was the Isdal Woman of Norway? Fair warning, I will likely mispronounce a lot of things, and I apologize. Especially if you were viewing from overseas and I pronounce it wrong. I'm sorry, Norway. The year was 1970 in the Isdal Valley of Norway. On November 29th, a father and two of his daughters were out for a hike in the valley, which is a short distance from Bergen. The Isdal Valley surrounds Bergen and is nicknamed Death Valley by locals. This is because the area is desolate and is rumored to have been a medieval suicide spot. Also, in the 60s, there were some hikers who fell to their death while trekking through the heavy fog that can be prevalent there most of the time. As the family hiked along, the oldest of the two girls, who was 12 at the time, ran ahead and was climbing over some boulders when she saw a sight that would make her stop and retreat back to her family. Upon arriving at the scene that his daughter had just been at, the father noted the remains of a burned body. Though the body was burned beyond recognition, they could tell it was a female. The woman's body is said to have assumed the boxer pose, which you retreat your arms back into your chest when you're in a fire. The family would make their way back down the slopes where he would contact the police. Police would arrive to the scene, which was described as an out-of-the-way and unusual spot for somebody to be hiking or walking. They would cordon it off and start their investigation. They noted that the woman was lying on her back, but they did not notice any signs of a campfire that may have been the cause of her burned remains. They also noted fragments of clothing, an umbrella, a bottle of Kloster liqueur, a burned plastic cover which may have been a passport, a watch with the name Solo on it, and various jewelry items. The woman had on a pair of rubber boots that went to her knees, and there were the remains of a bag near one of her thighs. Nearby on a stone was a wool sweater. On some other rocks, there were the remains of two plastic bottles which seemed to contain water. Police also noticed a partially melted spoon and plastic cup, leading them to initially believe that she may have been preparing a hot drink for herself before the accident. Due to the arrangement of the various items around the body, one investigator stated, quote, "The placement and location of the objects surrounding the body was strange. It looked like there had been some kind of ceremony." Further curious, and also no help in identifying the woman, was the fact that all of the labels had been cut out of her clothing. Any name or logo that had been on any of the items surrounding the body had also been removed. And if any of this sounds familiar, It should if you were here for my Somerton Man series. Same thing. And that was in the 40s. Once the body was removed, police would find a fur hat where the woman's buttocks had been. It was said to have smelled of gasoline, though only a small drop was found on the ground. There was also the burnt remain of crackers or bread, burned paper, and a matchbook from a place called Biat Aouz, which was Europe's first sex shop. The woman's body was burned all over the front, including her face and most of her hair. This would be sent for autopsy. At the Gades Institute at Haukelon Hospital, the autopsy would be performed by Johann Christopher Yertzen. Over days of examining the body, the pathologist would learn that the woman was about 5 feet 4.5 inches tall with brownish black hair. She had a small round face with brown eyes and small ears. She appeared to be between the ages of 25 and 40 and wore her hair in a ponytail tied with a blue and white ribbon. He noted that she had died from carbon monoxide poisoning, and soot in her lungs was an indication that she was alive when she was set on fire. She had a bruise on the back of her neck, which could have been due to an altercation or a fall, and she had a small amount of alcohol in her system. It was also discovered that along with the alcohol, she had 4 milligrams of the sedative phenamol in her system. Phenamol is native to Norway and is a phenobarbital commonly used to treat absence seizure, insomnia, seizures, convulsions, eclampsia, and epilepsy. Use of this drug could create suicidal ideation, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, and toxic epidermal necrolysis. Prolonged use could result in dependence. Phenamol can also impair mental and or physical abilities which are required for driving or operating a vehicle, or maybe even navigating your way through foggy mountains. Other side effects could be blood and lymphatic system disorders, musculoskeletal and connective tissue disorders, reproductive and breast disorders, psychiatric disorders, nervous system disorders, cardiac disorders such as hypotension, respiratory depression, hepatitis, cholestasis, allergic skin reactions, or other general disorders, like decreased property value. It is possible to overdose on phenamol, and the average adult dose is between 60 and 180 milligrams, primarily taken in the evening. The dosage found in the woman's bloodstream would not have been considered lethal and would have amounted to her feeling probably pretty relaxed. That said, she had another 50 to 70 undissolved phenamol tablets in her stomach. It was also noted that she had had unique gold-filling dental work at some point, and as such, her jaw was removed for further tests. It was noted further that the woman had not been burned on her backside, leading people to think that she had perhaps thrown herself backwards away from the fire, which may have been in front of her. This is just a theory. On December 2nd at the Bergen train station, investigators would retrieve a pair of suitcases from a storage box that had been left there on November 23rd. These would be linked to the Isdal Woman quite quickly, actually. Investigators would open the cases to discover a Norwegian road map, a steel spoon, a sewing kit from Geneva, a shoe shop bag from Rome containing leather shoes, a Napoleon-style wig, various amounts of foreign currency, German, Norwegian, Swiss, British, and Belgian, a notepad which had coded writing on it, prescription-free glasses, eczema cream, various makeup and cosmetic items, all with the labels removed. Inside the lining of one of the suitcases was a 100 Deutschmark note, which was a former West German currency. Other items included a pair of gants nerfs gloves in imitation snakeskin made in Paris, a trench coat with a possible fox fur collar, and a fur hat. Pairing those two items with the leather shoes led to the thought that the woman may have had money. Her toiletries included a perfume by Jacques Isdal of Paris, and her makeup was from Paris as well. There were various other maps in the suitcases, one of which noted the heights of the Bergen Mountains. The sewing kit was from the Hotel Regina. There were postcards, one of which was religious and the other depicted a Norwegian winter scene. There was a photo of the Madonna and a newspaper from Saturday, November 21st, 1970. There was also another box of matches from the Beat Auza, a spoon from Vienna, and a brown crystallized substance which would later be learned was sugar. The glasses had a fingerprint on them which would match the prints taken from the Isdal Woman. A shopping bag found in the luggage contained the name of Oscar Rodvet's footwear store in Stavanger. Police were able to speak to the owner's son, Rolf, who recalled selling rubber boots to a woman. He would later say, quote, "She was a customer who took up space, asked a lot of questions, and spent a long time making up her mind. Her English was poor, and I remember a certain peculiar scent. A few years later, when garlic had become common in Norway, I recognized the scent, and it made me think of the Isdal Woman. That's what she smelled like. In 1970, no one smelled of garlic. Now, everyone does." It's to fight off vampires. Rolf and his colleagues would give a description of the woman who smelled of garlic to the police, and the police would use that description to speak to hotels in the area to see if anyone matching that description may have stayed in one of the hotels in recent days. Close to that shop was the Hotel St. Satvitan. The receptionist recalled the woman saying that she noted her hips were wide, though she wasn't fat. She had a gap between her front teeth and gold crest dental work, which was unusual in Norway. According to the receptionist, the woman stated her name was Fenella Lork from Belgium. Issues would appear, however, with the name Fenella Lork. She was not registered at any of the hotels in Bergen. It would come to be known via handwriting experts who analyzed hotel registrations from all foreign women staying in Norwegian hotels at that time that this woman had used new identities and possible passports at different hotels. These passports were never found, but the handwriting all matched that of Fenella Lork. This could be explained as she may have been a con artist and was able to persuade people that they didn't need to see the passport, like some sort of Jedi mind trick. This is not the passport you're looking for. With so many names and still no real identity, investigators would rely on witnesses who may have had interactions with this woman. One such person was Alvi Rangness. She worked in the dining room of the Neptune Hotel in Bergen. She recalled the woman quoting, "Back then, single women in the dining room were not a common phenomenon. But this woman came in with a proud posture, found a table, and settled down comfortably. She was obviously a woman used to traveling on her own." Alvi would further recall, quote, "On one occasion while I was serving her, she was in the dining hall, sitting right next to, but not interacting with, two German Navy personnel, one of which was an officer." This would allow rumors to start circulating around Norway that the woman may have been a foreign intelligence agent. While some investigators were following up on finding out more information about the woman from witnesses, others had managed to figure out the code on the first page of the journal found in her luggage. It was not a secret code, but rather a shorthand record of the places she had been, meaning that 02028P was October 22nd to October 28th in Paris. It would be learned that she had stayed at several hotels in Paris under the name Vera Schlossnesneck. Using this code, investigators were able to track the woman's journey as she traveled from Paris to Stavanger, then to Bergen, to Trondheim, back to Stavanger, and finally back to Bergen, where she was last seen entering a taxi on November 23rd. There was only one code that was left unknown, and that was ML23NMM. Tracking her movements via witnesses, the police would learn that the woman's behavior was described as unusual. She would stay at the Viking Hotel in Oslo between March 21st and 24th under the name Genevieve Lancier from Louvain. From there, she would stay at the Hotel Bristol in Bergen from March 24th to 25th under the name Claudia Tielt from Brussels. March 21st to April 1st, she would stay at Hotel Scandia in Bergen under that same name. This would be her final stay for several months. She would return to Stavanger and stay at the KNA Hotellet between October 29th and 30th under the name Claudia Nielsen from Ghent. From there, she stayed at the Neptune Hotel between October 30th and November 5th under the name Alexia Zern Merches from Ljubljana. According to a maid who entered the woman's room, she found an upturned table blocking the hallway on the other side of the door. So inside of the hotel room, where you have that small hallway, she had an upturned table there, so that if somebody came in, they would hit the table. She was also seen meeting with a gray-haired man in the dining room of the hotel. It is said that they were seated across from each other. They never smiled. They seemingly never spoke to each other and only had conversation with the staff in German. It was said that she eventually slipped a piece of paper to the man and watched him read it with, quote, apparent sad eyes. On November 6th, she would check into the Hotel Bristol in Trondheim under the name Vera Jarl from Antwerp. She would stay here until November 8th, where then she would go and stay at the St. Stavitham Hotel in Stavanger from November 9th to the 18th under the name Fenella Lorck. At the Hotel Rosenkrantz in Bergen, November 18th and 19th, she stayed as Miss Leonhofer, and a maid was said to have rushed into the woman's room in order to make the bed. Upon entering the room, she saw the woman and a man seated across from each other and describes the woman as wearing a black dress, sitting on the bed, and there was a well-built blonde man seated on the couch. The maid is said to have apologized, asked if she could make the bed. The woman would stand up without saying a word and allow the maid to make the bed. According to the maid, both the man and the woman remained silent throughout her time there, and she thought that perhaps the woman was in mourning. From there, the woman would go to the Hotel Horheimen. This would be her final registration, and it was for the dates of November 19th to the 23rd, and she would stay there under the name Elizabeth Leonhofer from Ostend. It is said that she purposefully changed her handwriting to appear more clunky, which suggested to experts that she was either perhaps feeling pursued or she had some other sort of dramatic change happen to her between her stay at the Rosenkrantz and the Horheimen. According to staff, the woman would move an armchair into the hallway in the room to block the door, and then she would put it back into the room when she was out of the room. Staff would further state that she mostly did stay in her room, and she seemed to be very cautious or on guard. Investigators would also learn that during her longer hotel stays, staff said she would often request room changes, one time asking to change her room on 3 separate occasions. At a home furnishing shop in Bergen, a worker recalled that he had seen the woman enter the store with a young, dark-haired man. The two appeared to be arguing. They would eventually purchase a wall mirror and leave the store. It's hot. As I said, there were rumors floating around that she may have been a foreign spy. And you have to consider during that time in Norway, there were not many foreign tourists in Bergen. She appeared wealthy, well-dressed, and well-traveled, further leading to that suspicion. At the time of her death, The Cold War was happening, and apparently there were many spies in Norway, mostly Soviet. Apparently, there were also Israeli agents operating in Norway at that time, and this information would come out a few years later when agents of the Mossad killed a man in Lillehammer because they believed he was a terrorist. It was a case of mistaken identity. Decades later, Norwegian intelligence would state that they had in fact been investigating the woman and were interested in reports that she was seen observing the military test new rockets in Western Norway. There were no clear conclusions in that case, because there never are, and I don't know why they call them intelligence agencies. Even with the statements of her behavior, authorities would announce on February 5th, 1971, that the case was being closed as it did not appear that anything nefarious had happened to the woman. Okay. Her death was ruled a possible suicide or accident, and on a rainy morning in February, 18 members of the Bergen police attended the funeral for the Isdal Woman. She was buried in a white zinc coffin due to the fact that this would not disintegrate and allow for the transport of the body to another country should relatives of the woman claim her. No one ever would. Was it suicide? It would seem as though her last entry for her trip was for November 23rd, 1970. It said she was not seen after that. Or was she? There were some witnesses who have come forward claiming to have seen her around midnight. One witness said that they saw her get into a cab on November 23rd, and the cab driver would later claim that they picked up another man who shared the cab with her on the way to the train station. Remember, the luggage was left at the train station on November 23rd. There are still other witnesses who claim to have seen smoke or fog on November 23rd at around noon and believed it to be a bonfire. A firefighter claimed to have seen a man leaving the valley at around 11:50 that morning. I will link some of the articles I used for all of this in the description box. There's quite a bit more information out there. It's a lot. There's apparently been DNA testing on the teeth that were removed from the woman, and it identified the woman as a being of European descent, most likely Eastern or Central Europe, and eventually moving toward France. So, working through my list of weird, unsolved historical mysteries. But if you have any that you'd like to see me talk about, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I will be moving all of my makeup videos, so if you've been watching those, they're going to be moved to a totally different channel. They just don't fit in here on this channel. And I should be, hopefully, God willing, resuming the Baking and BS series sometime next month. I will leave a link for the new channel in the description box. Until next time, stay safe out there. We live in a crazy world. Bye. Bye.